By late 2024, the defense world had a consensus on Boeing. The company that once built the P-51 Mustang and the F-15 Eagle had become the cautionary tale of American aerospace. The 737 MAX disasters. The KC-46 tanker still being fixed years after delivery. A Starliner capsule that couldn't bring its own astronauts home. Billions written off. Executives replaced. Wall Street treating the defense division like a liability, not an asset. The question wasn't whether Boeing could win a major fighter contract. The question was whether Boeing could survive. Then on March 21, 2025, Donald Trump walked into the Oval Office with his defense secretary and his Air Force Chief of Staff and handed Boeing the most important fighter contract since the Cold War. The aircraft is called the F-47. It is the world's first sixth-generation fighter. It will replace the F-22 Raptor, and according to the Air Force Chief of Staff, it already has hundreds of flight hours behind it, tested in secret while Boeing's public image was burning to the ground. Boeing won a $20 billion contract for the F-47, and here is exactly why China should be worried. The announcement caught the defense industry completely off guard. Not because the F-47 was unexpected. The Next Generation Air Dominance Program, NGAD, had been building toward a contract award for years. What nobody saw coming was the winner. Boeing had lost the last two major fighter competitions to Lockheed Martin. Lockheed built the F-22 and the F-35. When the two companies entered the NGAD competition, Lockheed's Skunk Works division, the legendary team that created the SR-71 and the F-117, was considered the clear favorite. Northrop Grumman, which built the B-2 Spirit and the B-21 Raider, had dropped out of the race entirely. Boeing beat Lockheed anyway. Here is what makes that result significant beyond the headline. The NGAD competition did not play out in flight demonstrations and public spectacles the way the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter competition did 2 decades ago. It played out in classified facilities, on restricted test ranges, over 5 years of secret experimental flight testing that the public knew almost nothing about. When Trump announced the winner, Air Force Chief of Staff General David Allvin revealed that X-planes, experimental aircraft built to prove out the F-47's core technologies, had been flying since 2020, hundreds of hours, in the shadows. While Boeing was losing astronauts and writing off tanker programs in the headlines, a different Boeing was quietly building the world's most advanced fighter in secret. So what exactly is the F-47? Many of the specifics remain classified, and they should. But what the Air Force has confirmed is already remarkable. The F-47 has a combat radius of more than 1,000 nautical miles. To put that in context, the F-22 Raptor, which currently holds the title of the most capable air superiority fighter on Earth, has a combat radius of roughly 460 nautical miles. The F-47 operates at more than twice that range without refueling. In a Pacific conflict, where the distances between Taiwan, Guam, Japan, and mainland China are measured in hundreds of miles, that range is not just an advantage. It is a fundamental change in what American air power can threaten and from where. The F-47 flies faster than Mach 2. It carries more advanced stealth technology than either the F-22 or the F-35. Aircraft that are already the stealthiest fighters in the world. General Allvin said it will be more sustainable, more supportable, and require significantly less manpower and infrastructure to deploy than its predecessors. That last point matters more than it sounds. One of the F-22's critical vulnerabilities is how much support it needs. Specialized facilities, trained crews, long maintenance cycles. The F-47 is designed to deploy faster, with smaller footprints, into more austere locations. Exactly the kind of distributed, forward-deployed posture the Air Force calls Agile Combat Employment. The Air Force plans to buy at least 185 F-47s. And unlike the F-35 program, where Lockheed Martin owns the data rights and the Air Force has spent years fighting for access to its own aircraft's software, the F-47 is built on a government-owned architecture. Washington controls the code. That means updates, modifications, and capability upgrades happen at the speed the Air Force decides, not at the speed of a contractor negotiation. But here is the capability that should concern Beijing most, and it is not the F-47 itself. The F-47 is not designed to fight alone. It is designed as the command node of a kill web. Flying alongside the F-47 will be Collaborative Combat Aircraft, CCA, autonomous drone wingmen that the Air Force is developing in parallel through a separate competition. Trump described it plainly at the Oval Office announcement. The F-47 will fly with many drones, as many as needed. General Atomics Aeronautical Systems and Anduril are competing for that CCA contract. Think about what that means tactically. A single F-47 pilot does not just control one aircraft. He manages a formation of autonomous wingmen, drones that can push into threat envelopes the manned aircraft would never enter, that can overwhelm enemy air defenses through sheer numbers, that can carry weapons, perform electronic warfare, act as decoys, and feed targeting data back to the F-47 in real time. The pilot is not flying a fighter. He is commanding an air battle. China's most advanced current fighter, the J-20, has no equivalent to this. The J-20 can carry 4 long-range missiles internally and 2 more in side bays. It has a radar cross-section roughly comparable to the F-35, stealthy but not in the F-22's class. It cannot supercruise. Its sensor fusion capabilities lag significantly behind the F-35's, let alone what the F-47 will field. And it has no autonomous wingman program anywhere near the maturity of what the U.S. Air Force is deploying. The F-47, paired with its drone swarm, represents a combination that the People's Liberation Army Air Force currently has no answer to. That is the engineering gap that concerns Beijing. China is not standing still, and the U.S. military is not pretending otherwise. In December 2024, months before the F-47 contract was announced, videos and satellite imagery began appearing on Chinese social media, showing 2 different tailless stealth aircraft conducting flight tests from separate facilities in Chengdu and Shenyang. Defense analysts and the U.S. Department of Defense identified these aircraft as China's own 6th-generation fighter programs, tentatively designated the J-36 and the J-50. The J-36 is a large, Tree-J aircraft with a tailless flying wing design. 3 engines, side-by-side 2-seat cockpit, massive internal weapons bays. Analysts assess it is designed for air superiority and long-range deep strike operations, likely intended to coordinate with unmanned aircraft. By December 2025, a 3rd J-36 prototype was conducting flight tests, and China had made significant design changes between prototypes, swapping exhaust configurations and intake geometry at a pace that suggests aggressive iterative development rather than cautious sequential testing. The J-50 is smaller, carrier-optimized, and appears intended for China's growing supercarrier fleet. 2 engines, reinforced landing gear, wing folding mechanisms. If it matures as assessed, China would field a 6th-generation fighter at sea as well as on land, a capability the United States Navy is still years from matching with its own F/A-XX program. The Pentagon's December 2025 China Military Power Report confirmed it directly. China conducted initial flight testing of 2 distinct 6th-generation fighter prototypes. Both programs are assessed for operational capability in the mid-2000s and 30s. Here is the number that the comparison of timelines misses entirely. When China's J-36 flew publicly for the first time in December 2024, commentators immediately noted that China had a prototype in the air before the U.S. had even awarded its NGAD contract. On the surface, that sounds like a significant advantage. But the surface is not where this competition is being decided. The F-47's X-planes first flew in 2020. By the time the contract was awarded in March 2025, the Air Force had accumulated hundreds of flight hours on experimental aircraft testing the core systems, aerodynamics, and technologies that will go into the F-47. General Alvin said it plainly. While those X-planes were flying in the shadows, the U.S. was cementing air dominance, accelerating technology, refining operational concepts, proving the capability could be fielded faster than anyone expected. The F-47 is not starting from a clean sheet. It is a production contract built on 5 years of classified flight test data. First flight is scheduled for 2028. Operational fielding begins before 2030. China's J-36 prototypes, meanwhile, are still in early envelope expansion testing, the phase where engineers figure out what the aircraft can safely do. The gap in program maturity is far wider than the contract announcement date suggests. And then there is the engine. The F-47 will use an adaptive cycle engine, turbofan technology that physically changes how air flows through the power plant in flight, altering the bypass ratio to optimize for either fuel efficiency or raw thrust, depending on the mission phase. Both Pratt & Whitney and GE Aerospace are competing for that contract under the Next Generation Adaptive Propulsion program. No sixth-generation aircraft currently flying anywhere in the world uses this technology. China's J-36 uses conventional afterburning turbofans. The propulsion gap alone represents an engineering lead that takes years to close. If this kind of technical depth on the aircraft that will define air power for the next 30 years is what you're here for, subscribe to Flight Deck. We break down the engineering that shapes the strategic balance. Boeing's comeback is real. The company that Wall Street was writing off in 2024 now holds the contract to build the aircraft that will determine whether the United States maintains air superiority over China through the 2030s and beyond. The F-47 is faster and stealthier than the F-22 it replaces. It carries double the range. It commands a swarm of autonomous drone wingmen that multiply its lethality across an entire battle space. And it is built on 5 years of secret flight test data that China knew nothing about. Beijing is not standing still. The J-36 and J-50 are real programs. They are flying, and they are moving faster than Western analysts expected. China is running 2 parallel sixth-generation programs simultaneously, a strategy that accepts higher development cost in exchange for compressed timelines. The race for sixth-generation air dominance is not theoretical. It is happening right now on test ranges in Chengdu and Shenyang and in classified facilities in St. Louis and beyond. But here is the question that should drive every Chinese war planner's planning assumptions for the next decade. By the time the J-36 reaches operational capability in the mid-2000s and 30s, the F-47 will already have been flying combat-ready missions for the better part of 5 years. The United States does not need to win the race to be first. It needs to be good enough, far enough ahead, when the moment comes. Based on what we know about the F-47, the range, the stealth, the adaptive engines, the drone swarm it commands, it intends to be exactly that.